Another video on the new Nintendo Switch Pro Revision Super Plus 32X RGT. You are creatively bankrupt. You are out of ideas. But honestly, no, that can't be further than the truth. I am a man of the people. I look and see what people are interested in on the channel. And according to analytics, people are very interested in this new Nintendo Switch Revision. Any sort of information that comes out, people seem to latch onto it. And because I am a man of the people, I will continue to talk about this system until it is finally revealed. But is that reveal coming sooner than we anticipated? Of course, last week we talked about the new Bloomberg article saying that this new Nintendo Switch Revision, whatever the hell it's going to be called, would be potentially coming out in the month of September or October, and that an announcement and a reveal of this system would be happening before E3 of 2021. Many people are anticipating that this reveal is going to happen this upcoming week, potentially on June 3rd, which is this upcoming Thursday. So in today's video, I sort of want to talk about what's happening within the video game landscape, why this system would be revealed potentially before E3, and just talk about other things going on with the system, because it's honestly very fascinating how Nintendo seems to be sort of pushing this out a bit stronger than many people were originally anticipating with it. So if you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to like and share the video. Yes, if you aren't new to the channel, my sty is doing much better, so thank you for that. But let's talk about what's going on, why people think it's happening this week, and what the point of it happening before E3 would really mean for this new Nintendo Switch Revision. So something actually happened today that sort of got me thinking about this new Nintendo Switch Revision, because when it comes to this system, a lot of it seems contingent on third-party companies, which we will get into as the video goes on, because that's sort of one of the main points that's going on with this situation. But Crisis Trilogy Remastered was just announced today for the Nintendo Switch, PS4, Xbox One. They will also be compatible on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. But if you remember, the original Crisis came out across all platforms, and the Nintendo Switch version of the game was solid. I reviewed it, I enjoyed it, but it did have some performance issues that did pop up. Now, of course, they did do subsequent patches to the game to make it run and look a bit better than it was in its initial state. It wasn't necessarily terrible in its initial state. I still had a lot of fun with the game, but it definitely could use some room for improvement. So, like I said, these third-party announcements, these third-party things that are happening is definitely very contingent on a new Nintendo Switch system, because of the fact that you're going to have access to additional power with this system and the potential of things like DLSS artificial upscaling for these games, so that you don't have to rely as much on the power of the system, more so than the artificial intelligence. Now, one thing I want to make very clear before we get any further into this video is I see a lot of people online like saying very stupid things. And one of the stupid things that they are saying is, if this new Nintendo Switch Revision is indeed a thing, why would Nintendo alienate 80 million plus people who already have a Nintendo Switch or a Nintendo Switch Lite by releasing the system? And they're not. There's no alienation here. There might be aliens in the nation, of course. We're learning about that as time goes on. But as far as alienating people, it's not a successor. A successor is a system that would potentially alienate people, because much like a PlayStation 4 to a PlayStation 5, you can't play your PS5 games on a PS4, but you can play the same games on a PlayStation 4 and a PlayStation 4 Pro, right? You can play the same games on an Xbox One and an Xbox One X, right? That's what this system is going to be. It is not a successor to the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo themselves said that the system is halfway through its life cycle. You're not going to release a successor to a system halfway through its life cycle. Like, I don't understand why so many people are caught up on this notion. Could there potentially be games that utilize the Switch Pro and only run on the Nintendo Switch Pro? I mean, maybe. That's up to developers to decide. On the new Nintendo 3DS, you didn't see that very often, because yes, that would potentially alienate people who own a standard Nintendo Switch or a Nintendo Switch Lite in that case. And the sales of those games definitely were hindered by that. It's more about increasing performance for games we already have or games that will be coming up in the future. Now, a lot of people seem to be asking why Nintendo would announce this before E3. This is kind of the big question that I've seen circling online, because, well, I mean, E3 is a big event. E3 seems like it would be a perfect showcase for a new hardware that Nintendo is releasing. All eyes are on the video gaming industry. Why would they talk about it this week and potentially this upcoming Thursday, like many insiders are saying? It's pretty simple when you think about about it though, because I think Nintendo isn't necessarily making this system for themselves. When you look at the Nintendo Switch, when you look at Nintendo handhelds, when you look at pretty much every Nintendo console since the GameCube, Nintendo marches to the beat of their own drum. They will get the most out of their own hardware. They will get the most out of the software that's running on the hardware in terms of things like tech specs and technical abilities and graphics and things of that nature. Nintendo doesn't necessarily seem to care about this, but it seems like the push is indeed coming from these third-party companies. Now, I don't have a lot of inside information on this new Nintendo Switch revision, but I have heard off of the record that there are a few select third-party developers, big third-party developers, think companies like Capcom, that do have a Nintendo Switch Pro dev kit, and they are working on games to take advantage of this system. Now, as far as that is concerned, I would not be surprised, especially when you're talking about Capcom. Look at how Capcom pretty much helped form the Nintendo Switch. They told Nintendo that the system didn't have enough RAM on the system initially when they were initially working on it, and then Nintendo actually increased the RAM so that things like the RE engine could potentially run on the Nintendo Switch. And to think that Capcom is the only company that wants to increase power on this upgraded system to put their third-party games on the system would be foolish, because a lot of these companies want to put their third-party games on the Nintendo Switch. If it's taxing to port the game over to the Nintendo Switch, a lot of companies don't necessarily want to do that because there is that risk factor involved. But a lot of third-party games have been selling very solid on the Nintendo Switch. Now, we've also seen sort of the peak of third-party games when it comes to the standard Nintendo Switch model as far as these ports are concerned. Look at games like Doom, Doom Eternal, the NBA 2K series. I really feel like these companies and these styles of games are maxing out what the current Nintendo Switch can do on the marketplace. And as time goes on, this issue will become more and more prevalent as this technology gap widens between systems like the PlayStation 5 and the standard Nintendo Switch model. Now, yes, if these games can run on the Nintendo Switch in some way, shape, or form, that's fine. Look at how Hyrule Warriors Legends did on the 3DS. It didn't run all that great, but it still ran on the system. If you wanted the best experience, you had to get the new 3DS. And I think that's sort of going to be the focus going forward for a lot of third-party companies when it comes to this system. They want to be able to utilize this extra stuff that the Nintendo Switch Pro, Nintendo Switch Revision, new Nintendo Switch 32X CD attachment add-on can bring to the table, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Nintendo themselves will be doing stuff like that. I think Nintendo will take advantage of it, but I think what you're going to see in the initial state is a very soft launch for this system, just because of how the world is right now. You know, look at the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Those both had pretty soft launches in terms of software. I mean, there's still nothing that's come out for the Xbox Series X that's only available on the Xbox Series of system. Now, is that by design? Is that by sort of strategy? You could sort of argue that, but I think at the end of the day, it does play a role. I think what you're going to see Nintendo do, though, is improve the performance of games that already exist. Games, of course, like Super Mario Odyssey. Games, of course, like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild running at 60 frames per second on this new Nintendo Switch revision is a big deal, and that's something that I think is definitely very feasible to happen because of this performance upgrade on the system. I think that's the sort of stuff you're going to see with this system initially. If it does indeed come out in 2021, I think that is what you're going to see. Performance upgrades, more so than games that are actually designed with this Switch Pro in mind that also run on the other system. Really what it boils down to is people want to put their best foot forward at E3. So when you're talking about putting your best foot forward at E3, you want to show the game running on the optimal hardware. That's the reason why you saw games in previous E3s run on the PlayStation 4 Pro or the Xbox One X instead of the base models, because they do look better and they do run better. So third-party companies, and maybe to even some extent Nintendo, want to showcase these Nintendo Switch games that are coming out in 2021 and beyond to look as good as possible. So if an announcement is done for this Nintendo Switch revision, that would mean that these third-party companies can then show the best looking version of this game running on the optimized new Nintendo Switch system instead of the standard Nintendo Switch system. It's why they don't show anything running on the Nintendo Switch Lite most of the time, because, you know, you can only do it in handheld mode. You want to put your best foot forward at E3, and I think this is going to be a very interesting time. Now, do I 100% think that the system will be revealed this week? No, definitely not, because like I said, I don't really have any inside information beyond what you guys already know that I've talked about on the channel as far as this system is concerned. But would I be surprised if this system is talked about this week? Definitely not. I definitely think that there is a good chance, maybe 65-70% chance of this system being revealed this upcoming Thursday. I mean, time is ticking. E3 is right around the corner, and all I know is it's going to be a very exciting season. But I guess there is that potential that this week comes and goes, next week comes and goes. There is no Nintendo Switch revision. Do they do it at E3? Does it even exist? Is everything just a lie? Is the cake a lie? Who knows? I guess we'll find out soon. But let me know in the comment section down below what you think of all this hoopla, drama, speculation surrounding this Nintendo Switch revision. And as always, folks, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, like I said, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out other videos on the channel as well. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Like I said, when we hit 400,000 subscribers, we will be doing a giveaway. I'll probably give away a system or something fancy like that because I like you guys. You guys are kind of cool. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.